אף אחד לא עובר אותי, אף אחד לא עובר אותי. אף אחד לא עובר אותי. לא, גם אתה לא עובר אותי. אישור להביא לו לעבור. אין לי אישור להביא לו לעבור. אין לי אישור להביא לו לעבור.
תוריד את היד! אל תשים את היד עליי!
יש קורונה. יאללה,
תוריד את היד! בחיים אל תרים יד על חבר כנסת!
על מי אתה צועק?
חצוף!
מי אתה בכלל?
אתה חצוף!
מי אתה בכלל?
אתה חצוף!
מי אתה בכלל?
What you just witnessed is the topsy-turviness of Israel. On the face of it, it doesn't look like anything special, right? An Israeli soldier is stopping a group of Arab Muslims. One Arab Muslim screams at the IDF soldier, and the IDF soldier screams back at him. Right? Normal, right? Actually, not at all. There is way more to that scene than meets the eye. What you actually watched is an Israeli soldier stopping a group of Arab Muslims, including a terror-supporting Israeli parliament member named Ahmad Tibi, who were all going to demonstrate against an Israeli plan to build a handicap-accessible elevator at one of Judaism's holiest sites, the Cave of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs, Marat HaMachpelah, in our ancient biblical city of Hebron, where Abraham, Sarah, and many of the other patriarchs and matriarchs were buried 3,500 years ago. So, the IDF soldiers stopped that group, and then we all saw the Arab Muslim Israeli parliament member Ahmad Tibi screaming at the Israeli soldier, to which in response the IDF soldier basically screamed back at him to shut up because, quote, "Who are you?" is what he said. Okay, there is a lot to unpack here, so stick with me as we unpack this surreal event and all the issues it touches upon. Folks, as you know, social media censorship is growing. The best way to support our video work for Israel is to subscribe to our video newsletter on pulseofisrael.com and to share our videos. If you are already a subscriber, then thank you. First of all, did you hear what those Arab Muslims are going to protest? Arab Muslims have been protesting, even with violence, as you see here, against Israel's plan to build a handicapped elevator to finally allow disabled people and elderly to more easily visit the holy tomb of the patriarchs and matriarchs in Hebron. They are protesting the building of an elevator for the disabled to a holy site. Why would they be protesting this? Because the Arab Muslims don't want Jews to do anything to our holy sites, which they claim as their own. So of course they can't let us do anything to our holy site, including building a most necessary handicapped elevator that actually would also serve Arab Muslim visitors to that site as well, not just Jews, because Muslims pray there. We are talking about the Cave of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs, Marat HaMachpelah, a biblical site where Abraham, Sarah, and other patriarchs and matriarchs are buried 3,500 years ago. Yet the Muslims deny the Jewish connection to this holy site of ours. And they are protesting the building of a handicapped elevator to finally make it handicapped accessible. This is just crazy. Just a touch of the craziness our Arab Muslim neighbors exhibit in their fight against our right, Jewish right, to live in our eternal and ancestral homeland. Now let's focus on Ahmad Tibi, the Arab Muslim Israeli parliament member who sits in Israel's Knesset parliament, who was screaming at the IDF soldier. Who's Ahmad Tibi? He is a known terror supporter. He, of course, is acting with total disrespect towards the IDF soldier. And the IDF soldier put him in his place, which is totally awesome, because too many times even our own Israeli police and IDF soldiers appease the violent and degrading behavior of Ahmad Tibi and his fellow anti-Israel parliamentarians, because he's not alone. And yet they have immunity because they're parliamentarians. So who is he? Ahmad Tibi is a terror-supporting Arab-Israeli citizen who once was Yasser Arafat's right-hand man before Tibi entered Israeli politics. Tibi served as a political advisor to Palestinian Authority leader Yasser Arafat from 1993 to 1999, even representing the Palestinian Authority at negotiations with Israel. Tibi then resigned from his post in 1999 to run for Israel's Knesset, and he has been a parliament member since then. Basically a Trojan horse for the enemy inside Israel's parliament. Yasser Arafat is the biggest terrorist with most blood on his hand. So basically, today we have Ahmed Tibi, an enemy who literally represented the terror-supporting Palestinian Authority and Yasser Arafat in Israel's Knesset. Now, let's just give you some examples of where his loyalty lays. In 2007, Tibi participated in a large gathering marking 42 years since the founding of Arafat's Fatah terrorist movement in Ramallah. Tibi called upon Fatah's terrorists to continue their struggle against Israel, quote, until all the Palestinian land is freed, unquote. He accused Israel of murdering Arab babies, quote, they want to eliminate the Palestinian children, the women, and their elderly, unquote. This is when he was an active member of Israel's parliament. Then back in 2008, Tibi, still a parliament member, made an illegal visit to Lebanon and Yemen, and enemy countries of Israel at the time. Ariel Dad, a parliament member, said that Tibi wasn't a traitor, but rather the enemy himself. He visited enemy countries as a parliament member of Israel. That's forbidden. Here's another beauty. In 2012, again while serving as an Israeli parliamentarian, the Knesset Ethics Committee reprimanded Tibi for remarks in a speech on Palestinian Martyrs' Day in Ramallah, in which he said, quote, there is no value higher than martyrdom, praising Arab Muslim martyrs who murdered Jews in terror attacks. Here is a member of Israel's parliament speaking and praising terrorists in Ramallah, the capital of the terrorist entity Palestinian Authority. So why is this man a member of Israel's parliament, even though he is actually an enemy of the Jewish state of Israel? Basically, even though as a terror supporter, Israeli law forbids him from being a parliament member, unfortunately, Israel's Supreme Court goes against the law and allows him and his fellow terror-supporting Arab Muslim parliament members to run for Israel's parliament. Again, another example of the progressive agenda of Israel's justice system that not only does not follow Israeli law to punish enemies of Israel, but actually allows terror supporters like Tibi to serve in Israel's parliament, totally enabling and motivating them to continue their anti-Israel agenda. A total injustice by the justice system responsible for implementing justice. But I want to end on a positive note. The future is up to us, not to our politicians, not to our judges, not to our journalists. It's up to us. It's up to IDF soldiers like the one in the video who stood up to this terror-supporting Arab Muslim Israeli parliament member. And it's up to people like his father, the soldier's father, who just filed a lawsuit against Ahmed Tibi for slapping his son, the IDF soldier, who was just performing his duty. You see, many Arab Muslim Israelis, like Ahmed Tibi, and Arab Muslims in Judea and Samaria or Gaza, think that Israel and the Jews are weak, and that they are on the rise to destroy us because our political system, courtrooms, and journalists all show weakness, allowing them to get away with their terror-supporting ways, ignoring the danger they pose to all Israelis and the Jewish state of Israel. But our future is safe because of the people of Israel. Our future is up to us. And I believe this same message applies to freedom-loving people across the world, including in the United States of America. Because while the actions and words of politicians, judges, and journalists all over the freedom-loving world ignore the reality of the evil out there, and the future sometimes seems bleak, don't lose hope. The future is up to us, to people like you and me. As long as we hold on to our faith and continue to stand up for the truth and the values that we hold so dear, we will prevail. I can't tell you exactly when we will prevail, but we will prevail. Because ultimately, God helps those who help themselves. So we must do our part. Don't lose hope. Hold on to your faith and help me spread the truth about Israel and the freedom-loving world, to help us all.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.